When you think about a philosopher, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Probably the Hellenic stereotype of old, bald people who discussed boring and irrelevant topics. But if you are a fan or even a hater of philosophy, you might also add, perhaps crazy to that description. Philosophers are well known for thinking outside the box, which has often been misinterpreted as madness, and in many unfortunate cases, this perceived madness became an actual mental illness. From Nietzsche, who was bedbound and truly mad in his final years, to Guy Debord, who struggled with depression and alcoholism, ultimately leading to his suicide. I went a bit off topic, but my point is that philosophy is not as boring as many might believe at first glance. And to prove this point, I have made this list of some not safe for work moments in philosophy, just to remind ourselves that sometimes it's okay to laugh and let loose, and perhaps to convince some of you to give a shot to the beautiful realm of philosophy. Number 1. Diogenes masturbating in public. Who else could have topped our list if not for perhaps the most famous crazy philosopher of all time, Diogenes? This man truly gave no fuck. From entering Plato's classroom with a plucked chicken exclaiming, "Here is Plato's man," after Plato defined human as featherless bipeds, to telling Alexander the Great to stand a little out of my son. He did not care about the opinions of others, which makes a lot of sense. He was the one to popularize the Cynic school, which later heavily inspired Stoicism. Cynicism taught that one should focus on living in accordance with virtues and in agreement with nature, avoiding superficial desires like wealth, social status, power, and living a simple and self-sufficient life. As a result, the followers of Cynicism were always in conflict with the social norms, often challenging them by doing, in society's eyes, gross or abnormal things. And Diogenes was no different, by urinating on people who insulted him, defecating in a theater, and even farting in public. But the episode I've decided to put on this list is one where he was masturbating in public, something that we've all done at some point, obviously. When confronted by people disgusted by his act, he would only respond with, "If only it were as easy to banish my hunger by rubbing my belly." What I think this story is meant to illustrate for the modern audience is that in a world where our rights are taken away, where it was legal to rape one's wife until the 1980s in America, and where male suicide rates are high due to the lack of emotional expression allowed, maybe we should take a page out of the Cynic book and learn to question social norms the way Diogenes did. Or maybe he was just really horny, I don't know. Number 2. Hypatia being a queen. We remain in the Hellenic world for the next one, but we sail south to the gorgeous land of Egypt and Alexandria. Hypatia was an exceptionally bright person, a great philosopher, mathematician, and astronomer, and one of, if not the biggest representative of the school of Neoplatonism. She was a true queen in the modern sense, and she, like any respectable queen, took no bullshit from any man. When a student confessed his love for her, she tried to refuse him nicely, but when that did not work and he was not taking a hint, she threw her used menstrual pads at him, saying, "It is this that you love. Not I, my young man. You do not love beauty for its own sake." And her response perfectly illustrates the Neoplatonist school's beliefs. To greatly oversimplify, Plato taught that there are two worlds, one of the forms where everything is perfect, stable, abstract, and outside of time and space, and our world, which is basically just a shadow of the world of the forms. And only philosophers can see into the world of the forms by ignoring our senses. After Plato's death, his ideas were used by philosophers like Plotinus to continue his legacy, resulting in the creation of the Neoplatonist school. Hypatia, by saying "you do not love beauty for its own sake," meant that his views of love and beauty are the animalistic ones of our world, and not the true, powerful, and deep love and beauty of the world of the forms, showing the superficiality of his love. What a great teacher indeed. Unfortunately for her and humanity as a whole, her work was cut short when she was murdered by a Christian mob that stripped her down, cut out her eyeballs, and killed her. There's no hate quite like Christian love, am I right? One more thing that I want to mention is how her death was used throughout time. In the immediate aftermath, her death as the last true pagan was used by other Neoplatonists as fuel to their hate and opposition to Christianity, while later on it somehow became a symbol for Christianity and at some point a symbol against Catholicism by other Christian denominations. How a pagan philosopher and scientist who was killed by Christians became a symbol for them is beyond me. But maybe I'm just not seeing the full picture. Nevertheless, in modern times, she has become an icon of the feminist movement and women's rights more broadly, which I think we can agree is a much more respectful tribute to her legacy than what some religious leaders have done. Number 3. Ikkyu Sojun attending brothels and bars. When you think of a monk, probably the first thing that comes to your mind is celibacy or abstinence, but this is not always the case, especially for one particular Japanese Zen Buddhist named Ikkyu Sojun. And before I delve into his life, what is even crazier in my opinion is the fact that he's Japanese, since Japan to this day is not known for its open views on sex, being one of the most sexually repressed countries. Ever wonder why their porn is so weird and why sexual harassment is so rampant? Well, these are not the only reasons, but they are part of it, you know? Back to our monk, traditional Zen teachings focus on celibacy as an integral part of a monk's spiritual development. Why, you might ask? Because their goal is to reach a level of spiritual enlightenment through meditation and spiritual practices that focus on transcending earthly attachments and desires. Sojun saw this as nothing more than petty arrogance and hypocrisy. He believed that human emotions and desires are essential parts of who we are as beings and therefore should be incorporated in our spiritual journeys. And so, by eliminating them, traditional monks did not experience an essential part of what it means to be human, and that their rules and rigid structure are the unnatural and wrong practices. His visits to brothels and bars were only part of his spiritual awakening in his eyes, and if you expect a snarky comment or some bad irony, I'm afraid that I'm going to disappoint you. Sojun teaches us that sex and desires are normal and parts of who we are. We should embrace them, but not allow them to take over our lives. In the end, I want to give you two of his poems that perfectly capture him and his ideas. These are Self-Praise. Crazy madman stirring up a crazy style, coming and going amid brothels and wine shops. Which of you patchcloth monks can trip me up? I mark out the south, I mark out the north, the east and west. A beautiful woman's cloud rain loves deep river. Up in the pavilion girl and the old monk sing. I find inspiration in embraces and kisses, and think not at all of abandoning my body as though it were a mass of fire. Number 4. Michel de Montaigne defending cannibalism. Oh, European early colonialism, what an era. A period where brave and determined souls ventured into the unknown to civilize and help other parts of the world to flourish, bringing the European way of life, the moral, right and civilized way. Right? Well, Michel de Montaigne did not think so. He was an avid critic of European colonialism and its expansion into the New World. Unlike most of Europe, he did not see natives as savages, but as people with their own unique and simple way of life. He even mentioned in his writing that he was deeply saddened that ancient philosophers like Plato did not know about these people, as he believed that their civilization were closer to the utopian states that ancient philosophers imagined than any European society ever was. Natives, being seen as people and equals, if not superior to Europeans, this guy must have lost his mind. Jokes aside, this idea of equality between European and Native American culture was so strong that he even criticized Europeans for looking down on the natives for practicing cannibalism. Why was that? For plenty of reasons. First of all, he saw arrogance and hypocrisy in Europeans. Why is eating the body of the fallen in battle wrong, but European warfare and torture acceptable? Isn't the treatment of sorcerers by the church wars? How about the sacks of villages and cities where the inhabitants are murdered, raped, or enslaved? Europeans wanted to look down on native practices as barbaric because if the natives are not the barbarians, then that means the Europeans themselves are. And Europeans would rather pillage and kill than come off their high horses and accept that they can be even more barbaric than the barbarians they fight, even though they are no true barbarians. Montaigne's skepticism, and more so his famous remark, "What do I know?" is a great lesson even almost 500 years later after his passing. We have to ask ourselves if we are on the right or just drawing the line in the sand in our favor. Will future generations look at our society and say, "These savages"? Things like non-reproductive incest and some forms of cannibalism are undoubtedly moral or ethical, but I and most people on this planet still oppose them. Are we going to be seen the same way modern people look back at the racist and sexist civilization of the past? These are important things to ask ourselves. Maybe we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously, because what do we know in the grand scheme of things? And that's all for today. I hope I was able to keep you engaged and offered some new information or perspectives. If you want more videos like this, top 5-ish, feel free to express this in the comments and I will oblige. If you guys have any feedback, I would love to hear it, more so if it is negative. If you think I made any mistakes or misinterpret any philosopher or school in this video, please say so in my comments. I will address it in the pinned comment and description. Summarizing entire school of thoughts in a few hundred words is hard.